let's go ahead and talk to Amy in Washington, who is calling about young Earth creationism. Amy, hello. You're on the line with Jimmy and Forrest. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I'm if I am hard to understand sometimes, I have really severe anxiety. So, and the questions that I have for Forrest are hard questions for me, but are brought up because I was raised in a evangelical fundamentalist young creationist family that had a lot of really like strict rules, and God was the only way, and there's a lot that goes into that. And I escaped from it when I was 19 and struggled with understanding the world because I have a homeschool education, so I don't know a lot. But my ex-husband introduced me to Reacteria, and I've kind of fallen down a rabbit hole there. But here's my question.
Shame on him.
I'm sorry?
I was saying shame on him. I'm just downplaying my content. I'm being stupid. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm stuck because I turned to paganism and the Greek deities, but my ex-husband is atheist now. So we have lots of discussions, and I'm at that edge where I almost feel like I could step over into atheism, but I can't make that step because my brain has to believe that something's out there. But at the same time,
what's your question for? I'm curious. Yeah. Then what the question? I assume this is coming to like an evolution question or something, because I've comments already that I'm trying to not like kind of jump in on. So I'm wanting to like get to the question, and then I'm taking notes so I can get to my questions. What's the question there for Forrest regarding? Because it looks like you're calling in about young Earth creationism, and you have questions about that for Forrest, right?
Yeah. So coming from my perspective, being raised where it was only God and evolution and the Big Bang Theory are false and untrue, and everything that is said is wrong. But I keep listening to Forrest talk about evolution and stuff like that. So my question is, how do you reach the understanding that there isn't intelligent design?
Oh, great question. Yeah.
Or how could I like explore that?
Yeah. So first of all, really quickly, I just want to say kudos to you for calling in, even though you have anxiety. That's a huge thing. It's an incredible step. Nothing to be nervous about. Jimmy's very nice, and I'm an idiot, so don't worry. But I just want to give you a shout out for that. That's cool.
He's lying to you a lot right now.
Second of all, is I understand a lot of where you're at. I was raised pagan. I want to ask you why you went with Greek gods specifically, but we'll get there in a minute. But yeah, I was raised pagan, and so I probably held a lot of the beliefs that you do at this moment when I was a kid. And now, as a staunch anti-theist, atheist, and biologist focusing on evolution, all these things, I feel like I'm specifically equipped to answer where you're coming from here. As far as like indication that there isn't intelligent design, of course, it's any kind of atheism is important to point out that like I'm not necessarily saying that there absolutely isn't, because there could possibly be. It's just that if there was an intelligent designer, that dude is dumb as all hell and is doing a really stupid job going way out of their way to make it look a whole hell of a lot like things weren't intelligently designed. So unless there is a designer that is primarily focused on making designs that look evolved and look unintelligent, then I don't think there's any reason to accept it. And you can take a great example that creationists love to point to is the eye. And they're like, oh, well, the human eye is so spectacular and so intricate and so blah, 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 blah. And therefore, it must have been evolved. Okay, why are our retinas backwards? There's a question for you. Just to start, if this is such a perfect design, what's going on with that? Because what happens is you have these, light-sensitive cells in your eyes, and they each have to have a nerve that's connected to them, a single nerve fiber that comes out of them, and then those all bundle together to form your optic nerve that then goes back to your brain, right? And so if
Right.
you look at a cephalopod, which is like octopuses and things, right? You look at them and they've got the retina, the back of the eye, and they have all these light sensitive cells all in a line, and the nerve comes out of the back of them and they all come together and then they go straight into the brain. Super easy peasy, right? Makes total sense. If you're an electrical engineer, that's how you design it. Meanwhile, ours, the cells are there in the back of the eye. The nerves come out the front of the fucking things and have to cross over them. And so now you've got the nerves getting in the way of the damn cells. And then they all come together to form an optic nerve, which means they have to pierce back through the retina. So you have this massive hole now in the retina where you're not getting light there. There are no possible cells because you got the nerves all passing through it. And then they don't go straight to the brain. They have to go down into what's called an optic chiasm. So they have to cross over each other and pass now to the opposite sides of the brain and go all the way to the back. The very back part of your brain is where your occipital lobe is, and that is where you process sight. That's where your vision, your visual cortex is located. So if this is an intelligent design, what kind of intelligent designer builds a camera where the wires get in the way of the lens and have to cross across the entire fucking camera and turn around backwards and upside down just to get a point where it can make a picture? That doesn't make any sense. And you can go on and on from there, but I think that's a great place to start. If this is so intelligently designed, why on earth would this intelligent designer work so hard at making something that looks like it evolved, that looks like it's a couple billion years of good enough, not special perfect design? That's one way that I would start with that. And you can look at a million other parts of your body that have similar, evolutionary history. If you know how to read your body, you can read the evolutionary history written all over it. And there's lots of little things like that. I think that's just an easy one to start with.
Amy, if I can get it like down to an even simpler concept, getting away from creationism and all of that, when you're asking just how do you feel confident saying something wasn't the explanation, I think you'll find in your own life, you find comfortable eliminating explanations for things all the time that are, say, magical, even though you didn't actually witness the event. So if you were to walk into a kitchen that a lot of people had access to and you saw a bowl of cereal on the counter, would you feel uncomfortable eliminating the possibility that magic fairies that pour bowls of cereal put it there? Like truly, in a pragmatic sense, would you feel at all uncomfortable being like, as you started trying to figure out who the bowl of cereal is for, would you pay equal respect to finding out if the fairies put it there versus if somebody poured it and it's their bowl of cereal?
No.
Right. You would, in effect, dismiss the possibility, even though you haven't actually seen that, you haven't seen the event. You don't know it wasn't magic cereal fairies, but you feel comfortable eliminating it because you have enough evidence for how cereal bowls come to be otherwise that you know enough about how it should have been done in a natural world where we can investigate it, that you don't even entertain the possibility of the magical stuff. So if you have enough evidence that no God is necessary for evolution, it's not just a matter of that you dismiss the possibility, like, oh, well, I guess it still could have been God. He could have jumped in here somewhere, but, I won't say that didn't happen. No, of course you will. As a pragmatic approach, you'll go, there's enough evidence that even the holes we see are consistent with the natural. The gap isn't a weird gap. We just still need to understand that gap. We need to fill it in. It's not like some jump that seems magically impossible. We just don't know the exact mechanism. Even where there are holes, the holes imply a natural explanation. And so it's just a matter of like, at a certain point, I don't think fairies poured the bowl of cereal.
Right. Well, and that's what I think where I struggle a lot with, like, stepping out of paganism into atheism. Is one of the explanations growing up was simply my dad was a woodworker and made things like beds, dresses, armoires. And the explanation behind that was, it wouldn't be there unless I made it. And so if we look back, we wouldn't be here unless God made us. But as a child, I was ostracized a lot as a child because I questioned that. They tell you to, I don't know if you know this, but they tell you that once you do good and you get baptized, and you read the Bible and you are involved in the church, that the Holy Spirit's going to fill you up and you're just going to feel all this love and amazement. And the thing is I don't feel that ever. I've never felt it. And I've been baptized twice. I've gone to so many churches of different denominations trying to find this God that I was told exists, but I can't find him. But to step off into atheism feels like a very scary step because I just don't understand everything. I'll be honest with you, when I first moved out of my house, I thought Milwaukee was in Russia. Like, that's how bad my home
may as well be.
So
it's a nonsense place.
Your story sounds a lot like my wife's. She was raised, she calls it Babdicostal. Super, the speaking in tongues and waving your hands, and she, people at her in her church would, fall on the floor and writhing around and all these things. And she was very, very devout. She believed strongly. She was the most religious person in her very religious family. And she never spoke in tongues, never had like a big full body experience, never had these crazy Jesus seizures, never any of that. And she wondered what she used to cry about it. She'd be like, why doesn't God love me enough that he wouldn't give me all these things? But she refused to fake it. And she kind of came to the conclusion after a little while, I think all these other people are faking it too. That, or they've convinced themselves they're not. They've got themselves worked up so much that this is what's happening. Before she was even an atheist, that was what she was taught. She was like, this seems more like what you want to have happen than what any God would want to have happen. And at a certain point throughout her own deconstruction, which is a whole other story, she got to a point where she was like, okay, so I can now reject the God of the Bible. And I spent my whole life learning why every other religion is wrong. So I don't have to explore any of them. I guess there's nothing then. And she was able to drop it pretty quickly. And so, like, it sounds to me like you're in this situation now where you are looking around at your own community and you're like, this doesn't really work for me. And you are trying to find something you kind of fill in that gap, and that's super common. The deconstruction stories that I always hear is like, no, every single word of the Bible is absolutely true. And then, okay, so some of the parts of the Bible are a little bit more poetic, like the really obvious unscientific stuff and all the stuff about genocide and murder and slavery and all that stuff's not real. Well, if that stuff's not real, then like maybe some of the stuff about like, divine love and Jesus, that's also not real. It's more poetic there as well. But there is still, it's not really about the Bible. It's about the relationship with Jesus. And then it's like, well, actually, it's not really this Jesus guy. It's really just about God as this general vibe. And Jesus is just kind of a story about that. Well, you see, God as a general vibe is kind of an understatement because really it's just like being in touch with the spiritual world out there. It's about, there's something bigger than us. And science, magic is just science we don't understand yet. Sounds like this is about where you are. And then you get a little bit past that. It's like, okay, well, there's still, even if there isn't any of this magic and there's none of this pantheon, there's none of these gods, at least I know that there's still some sort of force connected. There's still something out in nature holding everything together. Something kind of like the Force in Star Wars, but more like a druid situation. And then you go a little bit further than that and you get to, hey, actually, there's a logical and natural explanation for everything, and the things that I don't have an explanation for and I don't know doesn't mean that I can't know and doesn't mean that it is magic, so I shouldn't really implant magic in that. And then surprise, you're an atheist. Well, you're welcome. We have existential dread and dick jokes. Congratulations, you're part of the club now. And so that's for me. It sounds like you're on that path, and I've been on that path. And I think that once you start applying the same laws of logic and reasoning and morality that you do to anything else as you do to this religious belief, to this spirituality or whatever like that, you'll drop it in a heartbeat. You don't know a lot about the universe. You don't know a lot about science, history, geography, whatever it may be, because your upbringing. Fuck, that sucks. I'm genuinely sorry. But you certainly aren't going to have someone approach you with some calculus and be like, hey, maybe there's a fucking math fairy, right? You just, all right, I don't understand this. I hope to someday. And so when it comes to evolution, the laws of the universe, where the universe came from, all this other stuff, I don't think it's necessary to be like, hey, maybe Zeus is real. It's more necessary to just be like, yo, this is some shit that I don't know. I've been robbed of my education, but I'm not going to let that hold me back. I am so excited now for the opportunity to go learn cool shit. And I'm going to go do that.
Amy, I think if I'm picking up what you're putting down, taking like your whole story together, I think the thing that maybe somebody needs to tell you is you don't have to, if you tomorrow decide you're an atheist, you don't have to launch a call-in show and start debating religious people.
Yes,
you don't have to be ready to debunk other people's religious claims. And it's funny because like a lot of what you're describing is a discomfort with being confident or to take on a belief system of a claim that you're not confident in. And yet you're in one as a pagan and you wouldn't be in one as an atheist. So right now you're in a position that all I want to hear is your justification for being a pagan. If you're an atheist, all your justification only has to be, I have not yet been presented with a God that warrants my belief, that I can feel confident saying like, yeah, that one seems to make sense to me. And so I don't know if that's been communicated, even in the case of like the ex-boyfriend you were talking about, or ex-husband, I think you said he was. That he's like, conversations with him, he's like, that those conversations are kind of changing your mind on some things. You don't have to be in that position. You just need to be in what's the honest position for you. And that is what I think most atheists are in. So I haven't seen the evidence that compels me to believe in a God. I am curious if you want to share it with us. You said that you believe in the Greek pantheon as a pagan. I'm curious, as far as what you are taking on as beliefs, growing up Christian, I would assume that you've seen why the way Christianity instills beliefs into people is flawed. So I'm curious what you get out of paganism that wouldn't be built on the same type of foundation. Obviously, not literally the Bible, for example, but it is a faith claim. And at the end of the day, all faith claims, no matter how harmful they are, do have a level of equality that you can't call out anybody else for believing on faith. It's the limitation of progressive Christianity, for example, and wanting to call out fascists who are using their Christianity. Like, well, you've said faith is an okay basis to build your house on. So I'm curious if you want to share that with us, what your justification would be for a belief in a Greek pantheon that your disillusionment with Christianity shouldn't have actually covered.
So my current husband is pagan as well. And he was full on. My ex-husband, my husband and I all live together and raise our autistic child together.
Okay.
My husband was raised in the same cult I was. We've known each other since my ex-husband was raised in the same cult I was. We've known each other since we were 6, been in the same churches, done the same thing, blah, blah. And then my husband was pagan. So I saw my ex-husband starting to deconstruct and step out of what we grew up with, because that was the whole basis of our marriage failing, was because we grew up in a patriarchy and lots of things. But so I started exploring paganism based on my husband, and I went with Greek because when I was 12, we would get boxes of books, and my mom would go through them and throw away any books that she thought were inappropriate for us to read. And she had forgotten this very thin book that was all about Greek mythology, their belief system, their gods and goddesses. And I started being like, well, I have to believe in something because that's just the way that they've made me feel. But these gods, they're not perfect and all-knowing and all wonderful and all these things. Like, they're just as fucked up as we are.
So real quick, because
I started leaning that way.
I have a question sort of on the basis of this, because belief itself isn't actually a choice, right? You either are convinced or you're not convinced. So it sounds to me almost, and you can tell me if this is accurate, it's not actually that you're convinced they're real. It's that you are convinced you would like to participate as a believer of Greek paganism. And so you are identifying as a believer with and getting the benefits of identifying as a believer and affirming that you are a believer. But if it came down to, do you actually truly believe, you can't say that you're convinced that Greek paganism is true. Is that correct?
That is correct. I can't say that I'm convinced that there is any God.
What will be the consequences in your community if you tell them, I don't actually believe this, but I'd like to continue participating in the activities and the rituals because I like this community. I'm not finding any, like, I hope that there's a lot of Greek pagan Nazis out there. I assume you're not one of those.
No.
But what would be the consequences if you just told your group, like, hey, I like y'all because y'all still resemble humanists at the very least to me. I don't want to stop coming, but just understand that I don't hold a belief that anything magical is happening here. Is that, would you be ostracized by them? Would they reject you? Would they be shitty to you? Because if so, you know, how far away from Christianity have you actually gotten?
I mean, that's very true and accurate. Because like I'm completely ostracized from my entire community, family, growing up and everything, because my child, without prompting from me, because my child is my greatest love, but he was also my greatest experiment, because I didn't teach him about God. I didn't take him to church. I didn't take him to Sunday school. I let them explore the world, and
sure, that's the Christian family.
Non-binary.
Sorry, and I don't mean to keep seeming rude. I do want to try and keep the call on track because we're going to try and take as many as possible. That's the Christian family, and I think you and I probably could have agreed on all of that in advance, that the ostracization that is baked into most Christian denominations is garbage. What would happen? Is there going to be a negative consequence if you just try to keep your pagan community but participate as a secular participant?
There wouldn't be one. There wouldn't be any consequences.
So why identify as a believer if you know you aren't actually a believer?
In all honesty, the only answer I can give is because I'm constantly reminded of, what's it called? Pavlov's wager? Pascal.
Pascal, yeah. Pascal's wager. So Pascal's wager shouldn't compel anybody for any religion, because Pascal's wager only would work if you had two choices, and you don't. You have all religions. And actually, if you choose a religion, there may be a God that specifically doesn't want you to be that religion just as much as you didn't choose the right one. So Pascal's wager flushes itself out. It's a very, very silly thing to build it upon. And if Baal or the Christian God or anybody turns out to be, there is a God, first of all, clearly they did not arm you with the tools you would need to find out that they exist. So any concept of them being a loving God goes out the window if they're going to torture you for not finding. You know, you live in Florida, but for some reason they set up your scavenger hunt on the moon or whatever, whatever the issue is. That would be on them. It's basically, Pascal's wager is not there. There aren't a lot of God beliefs that are like, yeah, you'll go to heaven as long as when you get to heaven and you talk to God, you're like, I believed in a God. Doesn't matter if it's you or not. That's not how any of them work anyway. But Pascal's wager is a good foundation.
One of my favorite ways that I've heard, because Pascal's wager has a lot of problems, but like my favorite way that I've heard it described is, okay, here's exactly the same Pascal's wager, only if you believe in God, he will punish you. God doesn't want you to believe in him. So if you're an atheist, you now get the benefit. And if you are a believer, now you get the pun. It's the exact same thing, and it makes exactly as much sense, but it's just turned on its head. So like, I would explore that a lot, because like, Jimmy already summarized it really well, but like, there's a million and one reasons. Even if you know for sure Christianity is true, there's over 40,000 denominations of Christianity, 39,999 of which are going to be wrong and go send you to hell. So what are you going to do?
Right. Well, and just so you guys can get to another call, I just want to tell you that, like, that's what I needed to hear. Like, I can't explain the struggles I've been in over the last couple of weeks trying to figure out how to deconstruct and find what I'm looking for. But I just want to say, like, thank you to you guys, because that definitely helps me, like, move forward in the journey that I'm taking. And I also
If your
appreciate
husband's a
everything that
mystical
you guys
believer,
do.
if your husband's like a true believer, mystical believer, have him call us. We'll talk him. We'll talk to him. You down?
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us, Amy. You seem like an awesome person, and I've met a lot of people like you, and I've been in at least somewhat of the place where you're at now. And I think you're going to do great. You seem like you're already on the right track, and you're asking really good questions. And I understand how important it is and how helpful it is to hear from other people who have been there. Just a little bit of just some confirmation. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your story with us. And I hope you call us back sometime. Tell us what's going on. I can't wait for the day you call us back and tell us how your deconstruction is going and how you're totally free of all this and you're going to go surfing next weekend and all sorts of cool shit.
Only atheists are allowed to surf. Yeah, sure. Thanks for calling. And my last note as we let you go is if you thought Reacteria is good, look out for my new upcoming service. My new upcoming series called Reacteriola. All right, bye, Amy.
God damn it.
All right, bye.
The problem is you'd actually do it. You'd actually make the
show. No, I'm too lazy, but that is funny. Reacteriola. As soon as I thought of it 20 minutes ago, I was like, this is going to be the last thing I say. Because you were like, yeah, Reacteria sucks. And I was like, it does. Reacteriola is where it's at. That's where you got to go.
The thing you said, the thing you said to me, we were talking the other day and you were talking about Reacteria. And you're like, yeah, I saw it on this Reacteria and it was so terrible. Something like that. And I was laughing at it and you're like, no, I'm just kidding. I don't fucking watch Reacteria. It's so good.
I don't remember at all. I probably was quoting what somebody else told me they saw on Reacteria. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh God.
I have to have so many conversations for a living. It's so annoying.
Don't go watch my show. And I said, I hope you don't watch it.
I've heard Reacteria is wonderful, but I think Reacteriola, it's just going to be me doing your exact script, but I'll be wearing a bra where you can just see a little bit, just a little bit peeking out. That thing that everybody loves. That's the best. Anyway, here we go. I salute the areola.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm the executive producer of The Line. And at night, I sneak into Matt Dillahunty's house and I trade his cereals for other cereals. He comes out and he's like, wait, these are cereals I buy, but I swear I had different cereals. Anyway, would you like to support this channel or any specific show? You can do so over on Patreon or in channel memberships. There are special tiers for special shows or for the channel at large, and it helps us expand programming as well as hopefully very soon launch it in podcast form. Now, also, if you'd like to support, you can like, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment or a super thanks, which is a special highlighted comment that you pay for. Those are fun. And, screw the algorithm, go check out something over here, I suppose. Boy, I hope I can still put those icons there, because if I can't, this is going to look really stupid. I'm going to go buy some Cocoa Puffs and switch out Matt's mini wheats now.